Free League publishing on Essen at Spiel, and I'm talking to Nils, who's taking the time to talk us a bit through what's new for some of your existing role-playing games and about some new things that are going to come out. So I'm very interested in what's going on with Forbidden Lands. So you have a new set coming out.
We do. We kickstarted a campaign called The Bitter Reach, which is going to be like a brand new way to play the game, and it's going to be set up in north of the campaign world. So it's going to be snow and ice and harsh weather, and it's going to be like lots of new adventure places, encounters, monsters, the loads, and new mounts to ride, everything. So it's going to be a big fat book, and it's written, it's finished, and it's starting to go into layout and production pretty soon. So it's the next big one for Forbidden Lands.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned new region, new monsters and things like that. Are there going to be new classes or new races that you can play with their secrets?
There will be a couple of new classes, actually. I think it's going to be 3 or something like that. And they're going to be a bit more adjusted to living and working in a cold climate. But you can also use them and play them in other worlds or in the main game. So there will be a few new classes. So it's a little bit more of everything, but also a very much focus on this cold environment and this harsh environment.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's your kind of long-time planning for Forbidden Lands? So you now we've went north. Are you going to kind of circle where we started?
Yeah, that's actually right. We're going to do one big campaign book or a rules book in every direction. So we start north. We're probably going to go west after that. And then we're going to go south or east, and the idea is we're going to map out the Forbidden Lands one area at a time and connect them with different kind of modules, and also explore different ways of play the game. So for example, this, as I said, focuses on cold weather. The next one will be something completely different. We're going to have one is going to be more about having a ship and being out to the sea. Eventually we're going to have something in a kind of a city, some kind of city-based campaign as well. So we're trying to explore with every of these modules, and we're going to do basically one big one per year. We'll explore a new aspect of fantasy gaming that we want to add to the product line.
Okay, let's switch over to Tales from the Loop. And there are a few new books out, at least a few new books for us here in Germany that haven't seen yet. Can you tell us a little bit about what's that going to entail?
Sure. What we did was we expanded Tales from the Loop with it's a sister game or a sequel game called Things from the Flood.
Yeah, the 90s game.
Exactly. So that basically takes the action of Tales from the Loop and moves it into the 90s. And you play older kids, you play teens, and you're more into having teenage problems. So it's also a little less. Tales of the Loop is an innocent game in a way. It's like Goonies or Stranger Things. You're kids and you can't die in Tales from the Loop. In Things from the Flood, you can actually die, and the stakes are higher, and everything is kind of falling apart. The world is changing. And it's kind of like a big metaphor for becoming a teenager and changing into an adult. So it's a game which is similar, but it's more focused on growing up and facing adulthood while battling robots and getting home for dinner. So that's the big book. And then we also released Out of Time. It's a campaign book that consists of a campaign in 4 parts. Which has to do with time travel, a little bit of Back to the Future stuff, but also tables for generating your own adventures, a bunch of new, we call it a mix CD because it's a companion to things, so it's like a bunch of new small adventures based on popular 90s songs. Okay. So a little bit of everything. It's very similar to the other book called Our Friends the Machines, but this is the next step.
Okay, and that's going to play with Things from the Flood or with Tales from the Loop, or both?
Both, actually.
Both, time travel.
Yeah, so it's actually, the campaign is meant to be, you can start the campaign with Tales from the Flood, and if you want, by the end, you can go over to Things from the Flood. But it's totally optional. You can play it only with Tales or only with Things. You only have to adapt a few things. Okay. So it's for both.
And then let's talk about the big thing here behind us, Vaesen. What is that going to be?
Yeah, Vaesen, or Vaesen, as we say in Swedish, it's based on a book called Nordiska Vaesen, which is translated to Vaesen in English. It's Scandinavian folklore horror, and it's our next game. We are kickstarting it in like, I think it's 3 weeks, November 5th. It's a little bit of, what do you say, it's based in the 1800s. And you adventure in the Scandinavia, so it's mostly in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and so on. You play people that have the sight to see this Vaesen, which is basically spirits or ghosts, but they're based on Scandinavian mythology. And basically, you investigate. You go out to the country and you investigate these shenanigans and see what's happening, and uncover Vaesen and fight them or help them, and so on.
So they're not going to be all monsters. There's going to be some interaction there.
Yeah, it's not all monsters. I mean, it's a little bit monsters, of course. We have like big trolls and stuff, but there's also these Vaesen are not evil. They're more like in tune with nature, and they live another life that collides with the modern man of the 1800s. So it's a bit the clash between the old and the new, but there's no really bad guys.
Okay. Is there going to play with the D6 system that you use for most of your games?
Yes, it is. It's going to be our Year Zero system. It's going to be a little bit similar to the implementation in Tales from the Loop. So it's one of the easier games we have. So Vaesen will be very, very much pick up and play. You can just do a character in like 5 minutes, and we will have an adventure in the book, and we will release adventure book at the same time. So you can start playing right away. So it's going to be a really accessible package, I would say.
So it's been a very good time for Mutant Year Zero these last few years with the computer game and everything, but the range is huge. Which of these are the newest ones?
The newest one is Mutant Elysium, the green book over there. It's actually, it was released this September. And it takes the Mutant franchise into one of these old bunkers where the old civilization has survived during the apocalypse. So in that game, you actually play the remnants of the people that survived the apocalypse. You don't play the mutants out in the zone, but you play like the ordinary humans. But they've kind of been isolated so long, so they've kind of been a little bit deranged. And it's this strange society dominated by a few powerful families. And the characters you play in that game is basically, it's similar to Judge Dredd in a while. You play like judicators, I think it's called, like judge and police and everything in one, and you investigate crimes in this big mega bunker, and you uncover these plots and uncover the truth behind the whole enclave as well. So it's a game that's more, it's part of the Mutant franchise, but it explores the background of the people that did survive and what they become and their role in the new society. So it's, yeah, that's it.
It sounds a bit like there's little interaction with the other parts of the Mutant Year Zero thing.
In the beginning, there's no interaction because you start in the bunker, but then gradually you become aware of the surroundings. So you open up and you will be sent out on expeditions. You will encounter the robots and the mutants and so on. And in the end, without spoiling, it will be pretty open. So it's a way to, you can start with that game and you can discover the zone and you can switch to Mutant Year Zero or one of the other games. But it's meant, a lot of people play them in order, so they take place at basically the same time, but they end up in the same area. So after this game, it's kind of integrates into the rest of the line.
Okay, so now we have mutants, we have the uplifted animals, we have robots, we have humans now.
Yep.
What's coming next?
What's coming next is actually, we're going into space.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a sequel game called Mutant Ad Astra. Like the movie, but yeah.
But with less Brad Pitt?
Yes, less Brad Pitt. And it's actually a sequel game to the Mutant Year Zero. Without spoiling too much, there's a connection to space in the meta plot. And this game continues that story in orbit. And it's post-apocalyptic sci-fi in our solar system. So it's a little bit like The Expanse, but with more furry animals and robots, and everything is very worn down and very trashy. So that's the next big thing for Mutant.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.